The silence in the arena stretched on for nearly a minute before Kresh finally found his voice again. When he spoke, it was barely above a whisper, and the translation device struggled to pick up his words. "How?" was all he managed to say. Marcus looked up at the Vorthix slaver, then around at the thousands of alien faces staring down at them from the arena seats. Some looked terrified, others confused, and more than a few seemed genuinely fascinated by what they had just witnessed. "You really want to know?" Marcus asked. Kresh nodded slowly, his compound eyes never leaving the sight of his supposedly perfect killing machine nuzzling against the human shoulder, like an enormous, deadly pet. "It's pack bonding," Marcus said simply. "Humans are really good at it." "A pack bonding?" Kresh repeated the term as if it were foreign to him. "The ability to form emotional connections with other species," Marcus explained. "To see potential allies instead of just predators or prey. Most intelligent species develop it to some degree, but humans—" He shrugged. "We kind of took it to an extreme." He gestured to the devourer, who was now lying down beside him, its massive head resting near his feet. "On Earth, we domesticated wolves and turned them into dogs. We tamed horses and rode them into battle. We made friends with dolphins and learned to work alongside them. We even figured out how to cooperate with species that should have been our natural enemies." That's impossible," Kresh said. "Predators don't make friends. They compete, they fight, they kill." "Some do," Marcus agreed. "But the smart ones learn that cooperation is better than competition. That's how humans became the dominant species on our planet, not by being the strongest or the fastest, but by being the best at making allies." As if to demonstrate his point, Marcus reached over and scratched behind one of the devourer's ear analogs. The creature made that rumbling purr sound again and shifted closer to him. "Your mistake," Marcus continued, "was thinking that intelligence and predatory instincts were incompatible. But this guy here? He's plenty smart. Smart enough to recognize a potential friend when he sees one." Kresh was backing toward the exit now, his confidence completely shattered. "The other humans," he said desperately. "The ones we've captured before. They weren't like you. They were afraid, they screamed, they died like all the others." "Yeah, I bet they did," Marcus said, his voice hardening slightly. "Because they weren't soldiers or hunters or ranchers. They were probably merchants or explorers or scientists, people who chose peaceful lives because that's what civilized beings are supposed to do." He stood up, and the devourer rose with him, moving to stand at his side. "But just because we can choose peace doesn't mean we've forgotten how to fight. And it definitely doesn't mean we've forgotten how to survive." The arena gates suddenly burst open, and more guards poured in, dozens of them this time, armed with heavier weapons and wearing full combat armor. But they stopped short when they saw the scene before them, clearly unsure how to proceed. "Kill them!" Kresh screamed from his position near the exit. "All of them. The human, the creature, everyone in the arena if necessary." The guards raised their weapons, but before they could fire, Marcus did something that caught everyone completely off guard. He laughed. "Really?" he said, grinning at Kresh. "You want to escalate this? Because I've got to tell you that's probably not going to go the way you think it is. You're outnumbered 50-1. Kresh snarled. "No," Marcus said, looking around at the crowd in the arena seats. "You're outnumbered about 10,000-50. It took a moment for his meaning to sink in, but when it did, Kresh's face went pale beneath his carapace. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of various other classifications," Marcus called out, his voice carrying clearly through the arena's acoustics. "I'd like to ask you all a question. How many of you came here tonight expecting to see a fair fight?" A murmur ran through the crowd. This was not how arena events typically went. "Because from where I'm standing," Marcus continued, "it looks like your entertainment industry is built on watching helpless prisoners get murdered by creatures they have no chance of defeating. Is that really the kind of civilization you want to be part of?" The murmur grew louder, and Marcus could see arguments breaking out in the stands between different groups of spectators. "This human lies," Kresh shouted. "The arena provides justice. We eliminate the weak and the criminal. Really? Marcus asked. What was my crime? Being in the wrong place at the wrong time when your pirates attacked my cargo ship? Is that justice? More arguments erupted in the crowd. Marcus could see that many of the spectators were genuinely uncomfortable with what they had witnessed, not just his befriending of the Devourer, but the entire concept of the arena itself. And what about him? Marcus gestured to the Devourer. What did he do to deserve a lifetime of torture and forced violence? He's clearly intelligent, clearly capable of emotion and choice. Is slavery justice too? The crowd was getting restless now, and not in the way Kresh wanted. Some sections were calling for the humans' release. Others were demanding answers about the arena's practices, and a few were starting to question whether they really wanted to be there at all. Enough! Kresh roared. Guards, execute them now! But the guards hesitated. Firing into a crowd of their own citizens was not something they were trained for, and the situation was rapidly spiraling beyond their control. Marcus saw the hesitation and pressed his advantage. You know what the real difference is between humans and most other species? He asked, his voice cutting through the chaos. We don't just adapt to our environment. We change it. He put his hand on the Devourer's armored flank. For thousands of years, this guy's species probably lived in harmony with their ecosystem. They were perfectly adapted to their world, perfectly balanced with their prey and their predators and their environment. They never needed to change because they never needed to. The crowd was listening now, caught up despite themselves in this unprecedented philosophical debate in the middle of their gladiatorial arena. But humans? Marcus grinned. We were never perfectly adapted to anything. We were too weak to fight the big predators, too slow to outrun them, too fragile to survive in harsh climates. So we had to get creative. We had to change not just ourselves, but everything around us. He looked directly at Kresh. We turned wolves into dogs. We turned wild grass into wheat. We turned caves into cities and rivers into highways. We looked at every obstacle and asked, how can we make this work for us instead of against us? The Devourer rumbled agreement, and Marcus scratched behind its ear again. So, when you put me in a cage with a monster and expected me to die, you forgot something important. Humans don't see monsters. We see potential pets. This is madness. Kresh shrieked. You cannot simply talk your way out of... He was interrupted by a new voice, calm and authoritative, speaking over the arena's communication system. Actually... He can. Everyone looked up to see a figure descending from the VIP section of the arena on a gravitic platform. She was tall and elegant, with the distinctive blue skin and silver hair of a celestial, one of the galaxy's most respected diplomatic species. Ambassador Valtar, Kresh said, his voice suddenly much more respectful. I was not aware you were attending tonight's entertainment. I wasn't, the ambassador replied coolly. I was investigating reports of illegal slavery operations in this system, reports that appear to have been accurate. She gestured to Marcus and the Devourer. This human ship was legally registered and operating under valid commercial transit permits. His capture and imprisonment constitute acts of piracy and unlawful detention under galactic law. Kresh's mandibles clicked frantically. But the arena, Ambassador Valtar cut him off, appears to be operating in violation of the Sentient Rights Accords, the Interspecies Slavery Prevention Treaty, and at least 6 other pieces of galactic legislation. She looked around at the crowd, many of whom were now looking distinctly uncomfortable. I trust that all witnesses here tonight will be available to provide testimony for the coming investigation. The arena erupted in chaos as spectators began pushing toward the exits. The guards, now thoroughly confused about who they were supposed to be pointing their weapons at, looked to Kresh for orders that never came. Marcus watched the Vorthak slaver with something that might have been pity. You know, he said, if you just asked nicely, I probably would have given you a ride to wherever you needed to go. That's the thing about humans. We're pretty reasonable when we're not being enslaved and threatened with death. Kresh stared at him for a long moment, then at the Devourer, then at the chaos erupting around them. How? He asked again, but this time the word carried a dozen different questions. Practice, Marcus said simply. Lots and lots of practice. Ambassador Veltar's platform touched down near them, and she stepped off with the fluid grace of someone accustomed to diplomatic crisis management. Mr. Chun, I presume? I'm Ambassador Veltar of the Celestial Diplomatic Corps, if you're willing. I'd like to offer you passage off this world, and assistance in filing formal complaints against those responsible for your capture. That's very kind of you, Ambassador, Marcus replied. But I have one condition, name it. Marcus looked down at the Devourer, who was watching the proceedings with obvious intelligence. My friend here comes. The Devourer emerged from the shadows like a nightmare given flesh. It stood nearly 15 feet tall on massive hind legs, its body covered in overlapping plates of natural armor that gleamed with a sickly green sheen. 6 powerful arms ended in claws the length of sword blades, and its elongated skull housed a mouth filled with rows of razor-sharp teeth. Acid dripped from its jaws. Hissing where it struck the arena floor, the crowd erupted in a mixture of cheers and terrified gasps. This was what they had come to see, the moment when another arrogant prisoner would finally understand their fate. Marcus looked up at the creature with the same expression he might use when examining a new piece of machinery. Huh? He said thoughtfully. Definitely not from Earth. The Devourer's 6 eyes fixed on him, and it let out another bone-shaking roar. The sound echoed through the arena for several seconds, and when it faded, the silence that followed was deafening. Well? Kresh called out from his safe position near the arena wall. Now, do you understand what you face, human? Now, do you feel the terror that is your due? Marcus tilted his head, studying the creature as it began to circle him. Actually, I'm kind of impressed. How'd you guys catch this thing? The question was so unexpected that Kresh almost forgot to answer. Catch it? We bred it. Created it in our laboratories. It is the perfect killing machine. Really? Marcus watched as the Devourer completed one circle and began another, moving with surprising grace for something so large. Interesting design choices. The 6 arms are good for grappling, and those claws look nasty. The acid production is clever too, natural chemical weapon. The Devourer paused in its circling, as if confused by the human's clinical observations. In its simple mind, prey was supposed to run or scream, or at least show some sign of fear. This strange 2-legged creature was acting like it was studying the Devourer for a test. But I have to ask, Marcus continued, did you base it on any existing species, or is this completely artificial? Why do you care? Kresh sputtered. In moments you will be dead. Professional curiosity, Marcus said. He flexed his wrists again, feeling the metal chains growing warm from the heat the Devourer was giving off. I spent a few years working with dangerous animals before I got into cargo hauling. Always interesting to see how different worlds approach the problem of creating the perfect predator. The Devourer had stopped circling entirely now. It crouched about 10 feet away from Marcus, its 6 eyes studying him with what almost looked like confusion. You know, Marcus said, looking directly at the creature, you've got good instincts. You can tell something's off, can't you? A low growl rumbled from the Devourer's throat, but it made no move to attack. That's what I thought, Marcus nodded. See, the thing about predators, real predators, is that they're not stupid. They don't attack unless they're confident they can win, or unless they're desperate. And you're not desperate, are you? Kresh was becoming increasingly agitated. Attack, he shouted at the creature. Devour the human. The Devourer glanced toward its master, but remained where it was. This is fascinating, Marcus said. You bred it in a lab, but you gave it real predator instincts. That's actually pretty sophisticated. But here's the thing about predator instincts. They're based on millions of years of evolution. And evolution teaches you to recognize when something might be more dangerous than it appears. The chains around Marcus's wrists were getting noticeably warmer now. He tested them again and felt a slight give in the metal. You want to know why I'm not afraid? Marcus asked, his voice carrying clearly through the silent arena. It's not because I'm brave or stupid or crazy. It's because I understand something that most species in this galaxy seem to have forgotten. And what is that? Kresh demanded. Violence is a tool, Marcus said simply. Just like any other tool. You can use it badly or you can use it well, but either way it's just a tool. He stood up slowly, the chains still around his wrists, but loose enough now that he could move his arms freely. The heat from the devourer had made the processed tellurium brittle, just as he had predicted. Most species, Marcus continued, taking a step toward the massive creature, they either avoid violence completely or they worship it like some kind of god. But humans? We domesticated it. The devourer took a step backward. Oh, that's interesting, Marcus said, noting the creature's retreat. You really can sense it, can't you? You can smell the predator on me. He took another step forward and the devourer retreated again. A murmur ran through the crowd. This was not how these exhibitions were supposed to go. See. Here's what your masters probably didn't tell you, Marcus said, his voice taking on a gentle, almost conversational tone. Humans aren't just prey that got lucky. We're predators that learn to think. He held out one hand toward the creature, palm up, moving slowly and deliberately. For hundreds of thousands of years, we hunted things bigger and stronger and faster than us. We learned to read body language, to understand fear and aggression and pain. We learned to work together, to use tools, to think our way around problems that should have killed us. The devourer's growling had stopped entirely. Its 6 eyes were fixed on Marcus's outstretched hand. But most importantly, Marcus said, taking another small step forward, we learned that the most dangerous predator isn't always the biggest or the strongest. Sometimes it's the one that can make friends. Kresh watched in growing horror as his perfect killing machine continued to back away from the human. Attack! He screamed. I command you to attack. The devourer's head swiveled toward its master for a moment, and Marcus could see conflict in its alien features. It had been conditioned to obey, but its instincts were telling it something different. It's okay, Marcus said softly, drawing the creature's attention back to him. I know they hurt you. I can see the scars from the control implants, the burn marks from the punishment devices. You're not really a monster, are you? You're just scared. The devourer let out a sound that was part whimper, part growl. It was a sound no one in the arena had ever heard from it before. My name is Marcus, he said, taking another step closer. What's yours? It doesn't have a name, Kresh shouted. It's a weapon, a tool of death. Everything has a name, Marcus said, not looking away from the creature. Even if nobody bothers to ask. The devourer was trembling now, its massive form shaking like a frightened child. Marcus was close enough to touch it now, and very slowly, he reached out and placed his palm against the creature's armored snout. There we go, he said gently. It's all right. The arena had gone completely silent. 10,000 alien spectators watched in stunned disbelief as the most feared creature in 3 systems leaned into the human's touch like an enormous, deadly pet. Marcus ran his hand along the side of the devourer's head, finding the spots where the control implants had been surgically inserted. The creature's eyes closed, and it made a deep rumbling sound that was almost like a purr. That's what I thought, Marcus said. You've been in pain for a long time, haven't you? With his free hand, he worked the loosened chains off his wrists, and let them fall to the arena floor with a metallic clatter that seemed to echo forever in the silence. You know, he said, still stroking the creature's head, I had a dog when I was a kid. Big German shepherd named Max, smartest animal I ever met, and loyal as they come. But when we first got him from the shelter, he was mean as hell. Previous owner had beaten him, kept him chained up in a yard. Used him for fighting. The devourer opened its eyes and looked at Marcus with what seemed like genuine curiosity. Took months of patience, Marcus continued. Had to earn his trust bit by bit, show him that not all humans were going to hurt him. But once he figured out that I was on his side, that dog would have walked through fire for me. Kresh had backed up against the arena wall, his forearms shaking with rage and fear. This is impossible. The creature is perfectly conditioned. It has killed hundreds. Yeah, Marcus said, finally looking up at the Vortex slaver. I bet it has. But that doesn't make it a monster. That just makes it a victim. The crowd was getting restless now, confused by what they were seeing. Some were calling for action, others were demanding their money back, and a few seemed genuinely interested in this unprecedented turn of events. Guards! Kresh screamed. Kill them both! 6 Vorthek warriors dropped from openings in the arena ceiling, landing with practiced precision in a circle around Marcus and the Devourer. They carried energy weapons that hummed with lethal charge, and their armor was the best military-grade equipment available. Marcus sighed and gave the Devourer's head one last pat. Well, big guy, looks like we're about to find out if you remember how to make friends. The creature's response was immediate and devastating. It spun away from Marcus with fluid grace, its 6 arms moving in a coordinated attack that caught the guards completely off guard. 2 went down immediately, their armor cracked open by claws that struck with surgical precision. A 3rd tried to fire his weapon but found his aim disrupted when acid spit struck his visor. But the most remarkable thing was that, through the entire 10-second battle, the Devourer never once moved in a way that might endanger Marcus. It kept its massive body positioned between the human and the guards, protecting him even while unleashing destruction on its former captors when the smoke cleared. The metal chains around Marcus Chen's wrists were cold against his skin as he sat in the center of the arena. The massive dome stretched high above him, filled with thousands of alien spectators whose excited chattering sounded like a mix of clicking insects and grinding metal. The air smelled of ozone and something sweet that made his nose itch. Across from him, the Vorthak slaver known as Kresh stood tall on his 6 legs, his purple carapace gleaming under the bright arena lights. His 4 arms gestured wildly as he spoke to the crowd in his native tongue, but the translation device in Marcus's ear made every word crystal clear. Behold, creatures of the galaxy! Another soft-flesh human for our collection. Kresh's voice boomed through the arena. Watch as I demonstrate the power that has made the Vorthik the most feared slavers in 3 systems. Marcus rolled his shoulders, trying to work out the stiffness from 3 days of cramped transport. He'd been captured during a routine cargo run to the Outer Rim, his small ship disabled by Vorthak pirates before he could even send a distress signal. Now he was apparently going to be some kind of entertainment. Human! Kresh turned to face him, his compound eyes reflecting the arena lights like broken glass. Do you know where you are? Looks like a circus, Marcus replied, his voice calm. And let me guess, you're the clown? The crowd fell silent for a moment before erupting in what Marcus assumed was either laughter or outrage. It was hard to tell with aliens. Kresh's mandibles clicked together rapidly, a sign of anger, Marcus had learned. You dare mock me, flesh thing? You sit there in chains, about to face the Devourer, and you make jokes? The Devourer? Marcus raised an eyebrow. Sounds like you've been reading too many comic books? Silence. Kresh's voice cracked like a whip. You will learn respect when you see what awaits you. He gestured to a massive gate on the far side of the arena. Behind that door lies a creature so terrifying that even hardened Kalar warriors wet themselves at the sight of it. It has consumed over 200 prisoners in the last year alone. Marcus looked at the gate with mild interest. It was easily 20 feet tall and made of some kind of black metal that seemed to absorb light. Heavy mechanical locks held it shut, and he could see steam or smoke leaking from the gaps around the edges. 200, huh? Marcus said. That's a lot. Must be pretty hungry by now. The Vorthik slaver stared at him for a long moment. Are you not afraid, human? Should I be? Marcus tested the chains around his wrists. They were solid, but the metal felt different from human alloys. Softer, maybe. I mean, I'm not exactly having the best day of my life, but afraid? Not really. Kresh's 4 arms began to tremble slightly. In his years of running the arena, he had seen thousands of different species face the Devourer. They screamed, they begged, they tried to bargain for their lives. Some even fainted before the gate opened. But this human was acting like he was waiting for a bus. You You must not understand, Kresh said, his voice rising. The Devourer is 3 times your size. It has acid for blood and claws that can cut through starship armor. Its roar has been known to stop the hearts of smaller species. Sounds inconvenient, Marcus said. He noticed something moving in the shadows near the gate. Is that it there? Kresh spun around, then relaxed when he saw it was just one of his guards. No, fool. The Devourer remains caged until the ceremony begins. He turned back to Marcus, leaning down so his face was inches from the humans. Tell me, what manner of creature are you that death does not frighten you? Marcus thought about it for a moment. Just a guy, really. Born on Earth, grew up on a farm outside of Denver. Nothing special, Earth? Kresh had heard of the planet. A backwater world that had only recently joined the galactic community. Your species has no natural predators. You evolved in safety? How can you be so calm? A laugh escaped Marcus before he could stop it. No natural predators? Are you kidding me? Do you know what we had to deal with on Earth? Enlighten me, Kresh said, though his tone suggested he wasn't really interested. Well, let's see, Marcus began, settling back against the arena wall. There were the big cats, lions, tigers, leopards. They could run faster than us, had claws like knives, and jaws strong enough to crush our skulls. Then there were the bears, some of them weighing over 1,000 pounds, able to tear a human in half with one swipe. Kresh's expression didn't change, but Marcus could see he was listening. Oh, and the wolves, Marcus continued. They hunted in packs, coordinated their attacks, could track us for miles. Then there were the snakes, some of them 30 feet long, others with venom that could kill you in minutes. Sharks in the water, crocodiles in the swamps, poison spiders, disease-carrying insects. But surely your technology protected you, Kresh interrupted. Not for the first few 100,000 years, no. We had sticks and rocks and our wits. That's it, Marcus shrugged. We had to get creative. The crowd had grown quieter, some of them leaning forward to listen to this strange conversation. You speak of ancient history, Kresh said dismissively. Your modern species is soft, weak. I have seen your cities, your comfortable lives. Maybe some of us, Marcus admitted. But I grew up different. My family raised cattle on a ranch that backed up to the Rocky Mountains. You want to know what I did when I was 12 years old? Kresh didn't answer, but he didn't move away either. A mountain lion had been killing our livestock. Big male, probably weighed about 180 pounds. My dad was out of town, and this thing came down into our pasture in broad daylight. Know what I did? Called for help? Kresh guessed. Nope, grabbed my rifle and went after it. Marcus's eyes took on a distant look. Tracked it for 6 hours through rough terrain. When I found it, it was feeding on one of our calves. Shot it clean through the heart at about 50 yards. A child's boast, Kresh scoffed. But there was something in Marcus's tone that made him uncomfortable. When I was 16, I had to put down a grizzly that wandered into our territory. Not with a gun that time, the thing surprised me while I was fixing a fence. Had to use a sledgehammer I'd been working with. Took 4 hits to bring it down. The arena had grown completely silent now. Even the Vorthak guards had stopped their patrol to listen. You're lying, Kresh said, but his voice lacked conviction. When I was 18, I joined the military. Spent 2 years fighting in the border conflicts on Kepler 442. You know what we called the local wildlife there? Tuesday, Marcus looked up at Kresh with steady eyes. So when you ask me if I'm afraid of your pet monster? Well, I guess I'm just curious to see what you've got. Kresh took a step back. In all his years of enslaving different species, he had never encountered anything like this. Most species had evolved past their predatory phase, becoming civilized and, frankly, soft. The few that remained dangerous were either extinct or had destroyed themselves in endless wars, but humans ... Humans seem to have found some middle ground. Civilized enough for space travel, but still carrying the scars and skills of their violent evolution. You cannot possibly be representative of your entire species, Kresh said. Oh, I'm not, Marcus agreed cheerfully. I'm actually pretty average. You should meet my sister Sarah. She wrestles alligators for fun. Or my buddy Jake from the Corps. He once killed 6 Kranesh rebels with a broken bottle and a shoelace. A low rumble echoed through the arena, and Marcus turned toward the gate. Something large was moving behind it, and the metal was starting to glow with heat. "Ah," Marcus said, noting the change in lighting and the way the crowd had suddenly gone quiet. "I'm guessing showtime is starting?" Kresh backed away several more steps, his confidence visibly shaken. The ritual was supposed to go differently. The prisoner was supposed to be terrified, begging for mercy, offering him anything for their freedom. Their fear was part of the show, part of what made the crowd love these displays, but this human was treating the whole thing like he was about to watch a movie. "Guards!" Kresh called out. "Release the devourer." Heavy machinery groaned to life, and the massive gate began to slowly rise. Steam poured out from underneath it, carrying with it a smell that was part sulfur, part rotting meat, and part something else that Marcus couldn't quite identify. "By the way," Marcus said casually, "these chains around my wrists, they're made of processed tellurium, right?" Kresh paused in his retreat. "How could you possibly know that?" "My ship's cargo hold was full of the stuff." "Raw tellurium, or from the mines on Arcturus 7? Marcus twisted his wrists experimentally. "Funny thing about tellurium, it's incredibly strong when it's pure, but the processed stuff gets brittle when it's exposed to rapid temperature changes." "What are you talking about?" Kresh demanded. Marcus nodded toward the gate, where the temperature was rising noticeably as whatever lay beyond continued to approach. "I'm talking about the fact that your arena is about to get a lot hotter than these chains were designed for." The gate was now halfway open, and a massive shadow could be seen moving in the darkness beyond. The crowd pressed forward in their seats, eager to see the show begin, but Kresh was no longer looking at the gate. He was staring at Marcus, and for the first time in years, the Vortex slaver felt something he had almost forgotten: uncertainty. "Human," he said slowly, "what exactly are you planning?" Marcus looked up at him with a smile that